Hello folks, Nile Creek Fly Shop here. Well, today I'm going to talk a little bit about tube flies. Tube flies have been around a long time, especially in Europe. Scandi tubes, etc. have really worked well for the Atlantic salmon fishermen over there. We're just now getting into it, and it's a huge movement. We here on the West Coast particularly like tube flies for steelhead fishing and salmon fishing in the fresh waters. 2006, when we opened the store here, we contacted Eumer and we became a Eumer dealer, so we started bringing in their products in 2006. They revolutionized tube fly tying, by the way. Very, very good quality products. They had many colors and body shapes. They really did revolutionize that time tube fly tying. And it was pretty cool to see, and you could just do so many things with the dry flies, wet flies, heavy flies. So then after that we recognized that HMH had a part in the States where they had actually come up with a metal tube with a plastic liner, and the liner was designed to keep the line from being scraped and weakening up your line going through the tube. So these are okay, but they did cause some issues. They spun a bit, and that's always been a pain in the ass with any of the tubes that do spin. And you could have brass, you could have copper, you could have aluminum, different metals for different colors. The other issue was, and always has been, what do we use to tie the flies on? And so there had to be a vise adapter. And the early adapters looked like this. They're okay, but they're so much better. The problem with this is you put this through your tube, you put your needle through the tube and make pressure so it doesn't spin when you're spinning your thread. Well, guess what? You just got to keep tightening it, you got to keep tightening it, you got to keep tightening it and moving around, rotating, and it's absolutely a pain in the ass. They're only cheap. $6, $10, $20. They're just cheap. Most of them are made in India, which is not an issue, but it's just a cheap piece of brass with a couple of screws locking a pin in. The pins come in various diameters, so you can use different diameter tubes. And then along came, in this case, a Snowy tube fly adapter. And it's kind of neat. It looks like this. And so you put your hook keeper over and it keeps it from spinning. So when you tie your fly, you put your mandrel in and it keeps it stiff, and then you can tie it however you want to tie it. This has a plastic tube, clear plastic tube, and I have a metal sleeve that can go over it, and then when I've finished tying my fly, I can put on a Conehead or some kind of a finish on the end, and done. So that's not bad. This actually works pretty good. I use that for a long time, especially with the Eumer stuff, because they have a little lip on the bottom of their body weight that the junction tube will slide over, and this is called your junction tube. The junction tube is kind of interesting. You can get it rigid or you can get it flexible. Lots of people like the flex one. They're okay. Nothing wrong with it at all. So in this case, what you would do, I'll come back to this. In this case, what you would do is you would put your junction tube on, like so. You would put your junction tube on, put your liner in, and what I've done, what I used to do all the time, is I would melt the end of my liner, and then I would move it inside my junction tube wherever I wanted, put in the vise, and when I started tying, which I'm going to do on this one, I would start tying around this bump, and so that'll keep it from sliding And that's quite important. And then you build your fly however you want, and you cut it to length, and then you melt the tube or the cone on the front of it, and away you go. These are really well designed for cones, as you will see. So one of the big issues has always been function, versatility. So Eumer brought out theirs in a bag. They would have their liners, they would have their junction tube, cone head, and bodies in one bag, and that was kind of convenient. But then, of course, a lot of people wanted to have a different cone and a different body color and yada yada yada, different like this. So they started bringing out bags of different plastic liners, different diameters, and so on. But that always has caused issues because we use a lot of cone heads to finish off these flies. So the standard cone would fit the Eumer tubes, but they wouldn't fit other tubes, Froden and stuff like that from Europe. They just wouldn't fit. So Eumer was the first to make them universally good for the standard cones. But then, of course, there's always issues. So then along came the major issue of tube fly adapters. Snowy 1 was really popular for a long time. And then they came out with a vise specific for tube fly tying. So if you're doing a lot of tying, awesome. I have one, love them, but I don't just use it all the time. This is so much more versatile today. So then, about maybe 10 years ago, maybe somewhere like that, a young company came onto the market called ProTube. And ProTube, like the other companies, were very specific, yet they came out with a needle. And it has revolutionized tube fly tying. It's a rounded point, and you have a bent or a flattened section here that actually holds in a vise. Now today I'm going to tie on the Kaiman vise, although I can tie on many vices. This is the T-Rex vise. I can tie on it real easily. The pin will not move. So I'm going to just put the pin in my Kaiman vise. There. I'm going to take the T-Rex off so I have a little more room. Here we are. Move this over so most people can see it. The downside of the Kaiman vise is we do not have a clamp for this. These are all pedestals. Some people prefer pedestals. Personally, I need a clamp. I like a clamp vise. But then I tie here a lot, so my kitchen table is never used. Okay, so here we are with the ProTube pin. Like I said, this has actually revolutionized tube fly tying. It's made it easy, so you don't have to dick around with that stupid thing here. And these tubes, or this device, and this accessory is amazing because it's tapered. You've seen other companies now come out with tapered pins of various types, but not like this. This is quite complicated. I've been told it's a difficult thing to make. They've done a great job. They are expensive. They cost $22 Canadian. So I'm going to now slip in a junction tube, which I don't really care about. I don't use it very often myself. I use my tubes without a junction tube. I do. I'm going to cut that. I don't need that long. There. And it's a soft junction tube. It's a silicone type junction tube. And I'll slip the pin inside my burgundy colored or purple tube. Bring that here. And as I said before, I have a bump here. You can see I can slide my tube wherever I want, but the bump is right there. And when I start my thread, I'm going to start my thread there. See, you notice how it rotated? Well, once it's tight, it won't rotate. Here we are. So I've clamped down really nicely on the purple, on the purple hard plastic tube. And now I can tie. So I'm just going to take my thread, I'm going to come up, I'll clamp down that little junction section there and come back down. And very simple tie. I'm not going to make this a complicated fly. I could, but I'm not going to. I just want to show a couple people how this goes. There. So I'm going to do this. And I've got some Palmer chenille. I'm just going to wrap it around for a little base. Just a little base, that's all. Not that fussy. For this fly, it's really not that important. It's just some color under the marabou. There. Damn cell phones. Now I'm going to grab a piece of marabou. So I've got my red body. There are a lot of companies that produce tube fly accessories. Stonfo is another one. They have a wonderful one that I really do like. It's very hard plastic, very, very hard. And they have these neat cones that are shaped like a torpedo shape. And they are really fun to tie with, and the cone is very hollow at the end, so you can slide it right over your materials and cover the end really, really nicely. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of pink marabou. There we are. We dye our own marabou here mostly. Mostly, not entirely. Now I always tie mine from the stem, and I'm going to take the bottom part off. I usually will bend it, and there we are. I'm going to bring my thread up and over. There. Now, nothing's going to move. That thread over that body doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And if a fish won't bite it, but if it did, well, it might break the thread off a bit. But again, not a big deal. What I like about tube flies is when you grab these fish, and when fish grab your fly, they grab basically just the hook. And then what happens is your hook stays in the fish's mouth, hopefully, and the fly slides up. It simply slides up the shank or your line. And so you'll see your fish is just playing the hook, and your fly is way the hell away from the fish. So that's kind of an interesting idea, because the small hooks hook fish better. So there you see, ladies and gentlemen, a very simple, very, very cool looking tube fly. I'll put a little flash on, just a little tiny bit of flash, and then that fly is done. That fly will catch steelhead in any system. Ontario, Alberta, not Alberta, sorry, they don't have steelhead. Ontario, BC, Washington State, Alaska, all these places that have steelhead. This is one of those patterns, very easy to tie, that will catch fish. Now, let's see, I don't need much there. I'm going to put a cone on this too. I want you guys to see how easy this all goes out. And that's a very simple and basic fly. most often we as tyers like to be a lot more complicated, but I really want you guys to understand the functionality of a tube fly. A little super glue, as I always use. There's the point here. Super glue doesn't ignite as readily does an oil-based head finish. So when we're using a lighter here, we want to make sure that we don't have a fire. So I'm just using a standard hole diameter cone. Move this around a little bit so you can see it. And you can actually force the cone harder, and it will actually force your material back even more. And then I'm going to cut and leave about 1/8 of an inch. I got to move that away from the pin. There we are. You can see the pin sticking out. Lighter. Use the blue side of the blue flame. Boy Scouts know about blue flames. There is a very cool, not necessarily color coordinated fly, but it was the intent is to let you fellas and everybody, not just fellas, but everybody see how easy it is to tie a fly and the functionality of it. The Canadian Tube Fly Company is a leader in bringing products over that are functional. I use their Scandi tubes on most items because the Scandi tubes will fit cone heads and bodies and beads and different things like that. There's actually a small tube that you can get that will actually fit your 1/4 inch beads. So I hope that's been helpful. Kaiman vise is wonderful. That pin's not moving. You can lock it down, you can release it, you can free spool it. Oh, watch this. So yeah, so it's pretty cool. We have pretty neat stuff. We're really fortunate to have this stuff. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you liked that, and I hope you understood all my babble about the functionality of different products. Thank you.